Well, good afternoon. How's it going today? So, how was our food supply poisoned? Everybody knows it's been poisoned. You can just look around, go out in public, go to a store, your coworkers, just look around. Go to an airport. That's a really good place. And just look, do people look like they're in optimal health? Are they healthy or are they overweight? Do they look sickly? Do they complain about sickness? It happens all the time. So we know that people are less healthy now than they were before. And we know it's because of the things we eat. We know it. So, first of all, before I go any further, why should you believe me? I mean, there's lots of people that tell you everything out there, right? Well, I can tell you why. Number one, I've done hundreds of hours of research on these topics. And number two, all that research was done independently. I'm not trying to sell you anything, okay? I'm not working for a government agency. I don't work for the FDA. I don't work for a big corporation or big agriculture or big pharma. I'm a citizen, just like you. So basically, four different things in our food supply, four different foods, caused absolute havoc. And those four were canola oil, corn, soybean, and wheat. And first of all, that's because all four of them are GMO, genetically modified organisms. Everybody knows GMO is bad. Do you know GMO is bad? Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody knows GMO is bad. But most of them don't know why. Why is GMO so bad? What does GMO do? What did we modify it to do? It was genetically modified, right? So all four of these were modified during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and they became in full production by the 1990s. Makes sense, right? That's about when we saw the explosion in diabetes and celiac disease, gluten intolerance, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cancers we had never seen before. On and on, right? So, okay. So let's start with canola oil, okay? First of all, I'm going to start with canola oil because everybody says, oh, well, canola oil is so healthy, right? It's the healthy choice. That's why, we use so much of it. And it's so cheap too, right? Uh-huh. They say it's healthy because it's got omega 3 and omega 6 fatty acids in it. Okay? Well, guess what? When they manufacture this stuff, when they extract the seed that's used to make canola oil, it's a seed oil. They use extreme heat, right? And when you use a lot of heat, all those omega 3 and omega 6 fatty acids are dead. So they're not in there. Okay? The reason they use so much of it is because it's so damn cheap. So how is it genetically modified? Well, canola oil comes from what's called the canola plant, and it grows a lot in Canada. It's primarily from Canada. And during World War II, the seed from that is called rapeseed oil. They would extract this oil from canola and they would use it in our equipment in World War II as an oil, motor oil, lubricants for our machinery in World War II. Because they couldn't use it for humans because it had a really high acidic property, an acid called euric acid, which is toxic to humans. So they couldn't use it as food. So then after World War II, they got all this plant up there and all this oil production. Well, what the hell are they going to do with it? Well, they decide, well, we can modify it. Okay, we'll genetically modify it to bring down those uric acid levels. We'll bring those levels down and it'll make it safe for humans. They didn't say they were going to eliminate those acids. And guess what? That acid's still in there. It's just not as much. But it's still toxic to humans and it causes massive inflammation, causes all kinds of disease. Once you have inflammation, you're susceptible to just about anything. Inflammation first affects the gut. And then once you have gut inflammation, you have malabsorption and a host of all other diseases and afflictions occur. Okay? In fact, in part of the research I did, I read one report where when the Canadian officials were trying to get that oil accepted into the United States, they had to bribe the FDA into saying canola oil is relatively safe for humans. There's low health risks to canola oil. We know that's not true. Canola oil is everywhere. It's in all your fried foods. It's in all your salad dressings. Most of your canned meats that are all stored in canola oil. You look at the ingredients of everything you eat. It's in our breads, right? It's everywhere because it's so cheap. It comes from a weed. It has a little seed and they extract this oil out of this seed. It's not even like an olive oil. Like olive oil, at least it's a large olive, right? I'm getting a lot of juice out of that. These seeds, good grief, but it's really cheap. So that's why they modified canola oil and it became, like I said, they started after World War II. So we've been eating that stuff for a long time. And just ask yourself, right? When you look around at people, do they look healthy? Okay, number 2 and 3 I'll talk about together. Corn and soy. Corn and soy were both also genetically modified. They were both genetically modified about the same timeline. The work started in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, and by the 1990s, it was fully introduced to the food production. To whereas today, 90% of all corn is GMO and 95% of all soybean is GMO. So it's everywhere. So how did they what did they modify it to do? And why is it so bad? Okay, they never tell you that, right? When you see these food packagings and it says, oh, well, it's non-GMO, because everybody knows GMO is bad. But they don't tell you why GMO is bad or how they modified it to be GMO. What happened? Well, what they did was they wanted to modify corn and soy to do basically three things. Okay? Three things. One, increase production. That was the major goal. Okay? We just want to produce more of it. We need more food. We want to make more money. We want to make it cheaper to produce, blah, 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 blah. Well, to do that, you're going to have to do two other things. You're going to have to keep weeds from encroaching on them that are taking their nutrients. And, weeds compete with corn. And you're going to have to kill all the insects that go after corn and soybean. So they produced a strain of corn and soybean that's resistant to herbicides and pesticides because they're going to spray herbicides on them to kill the weeds in the dirt, right? And they're going to spray pesticides on them to keep insects away and to kill insects. Okay? So they developed strains of corn and soybean that are resistant to these chemicals. Namely, one chemical, there's lots of chemicals they use. But the number one chemical they use, and they use an awful lot of it on almost all your corn and soybean, it's called glyphosate. And everybody knows about glyphosate. You've heard about it, right? It's the active ingredient in Roundup that was proven to cause cancer. And years before that, even when they had proven it, they said, well, this stuff probably might cause cancer. But they kept using it, and they still use it. Everywhere. Okay? So, okay. Really? Yeah. And that's why Roundup stopped using glyphosate. Remember, there was that huge lawsuit, right? If you got lymphoma, if you got cancer from using Roundup, you could be part of this huge class action lawsuit. You saw ads for it on TV every frickin' day, right? So glyphosate, really bad. But here's another thing they don't tell you, and I was flabbergasted when I learned it. They also produced a strain of corn, and it's probably the same in soy, but a strain of corn is called BT corn. B as in boy, and that's the one resistant to all the herbicides and pesticides. But that plant also produces a protein that kills insects. What? A plant that kills that? Yeah, that's right. A plant that kills insects. The corn or the soy produces a protein in its metabolism. And if an insect takes a bite out of the leaf of that plant, it ingests that protein, paralyzes, and kills the insect. It works on its digestive system. It paralyzes their digestive system and they die. But of course, the FDA says, yeah, that's right, but it's safe for humans and human livestock, right? That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, you may not think a little bit is harmful, or even microscopic amounts of that stuff is harmful, because it does kill insects when they eat it. But you eat that stuff over a long period of time, think about it. Now, why is doing this to corn and soy so bad? Well, it's poisonous. It's got all these pesticides and chemicals inside it. And there's something going on with its genetic structure that's bad for your digestive system. It's obvious, okay? So it's corn and soybean are everywhere. Everything you eat has some soy or corn in it, pretty much. If it's anything prepared, a bread, they feed it to all of our livestock. So all your chickens, all your pigs, all your cows, all your dairy cows that are eating this stuff. See, dairy cows is the worst because the dairy cows then eat the corn and then they produce milk and cheese and butter and all those dairy products, right? Oh boy, and here's the worst thing they don't tell you. They say, yeah, the cows are fed corn, but most people don't realize it's not like they're just serving them corn right off the cob. No, what they do is they serve them this stuff called corn silage. And that's when they literally go through and harvest the entire plant, not just the corn cobs that we see and eat raw, the whole plant, stalks, leaves, corn cobs, husk, the whole frickin' thing. And they go through the fields with these huge combines that tear up the corn, put it in this machine and just shreds it into a pulp. And it's called corn silage. And then they take that pulp and that's what they feed your animals. The leaves, did you hear me? The leaves? They're spraying all those chemicals on it. And all those proteins that kill insects are in the leaves. And those all then go into the cattle and the chicken and the pigs and your corn tortillas and your corn chips and all your snack foods, your Cheetos, any time of corn puffs. And what do they fry it in? Canola oil. Oh my God, you're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. So, canola oil, GMO, it's toxic, it's inflammatory, we know it. Corn and soybean, sprayed with tons of chemicals and pesticides, and it's everywhere. Okay? Think about this on a sidebar. Mexico banned the importation of corn for the United States because it was all GMO, and the Mexicans said, We are banning the importation of American corn because of the health risks to our people. Got it? Oh boy. Well, what's the fourth one? What's the fourth food? Well, the fourth one's probably even worse. It's called hybridized wheat. You take a hybrid of something, hybridized, hybridized wheat. It was developed in the 1970s, same thing, and in full production by the 1990s. And they did no testing on it. Zero. No human trials, no animal trials, nothing. They didn't think to do studies on wheat, but wheat's in almost everything you eat as a carb. It's in bread, your cookies, your cakes, all your pasta. Think about where wheat is. And they hybridized it to do what? To produce more. Okay. Well, as a result, when you start playing around with genetics, there's always some unforeseen result that's going to happen when you start playing around with genes. they, oh, well, we understand the gene structure, and the chains, and we know how to manipulate that to do this and to do that. Really? You know how complicated genes are? Now, so they hybridized the wheat. Well, what happened? It increased the glycemic index. It caused molecular changes in the gluten that caused celiac disease, gluten intolerance, higher rates of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, inflammatory responses within the bowel, on and on. And guess what? That GMO wheat, that's basically what it is. They just call it hybridized because the term GMO we know is like really bad. So they don't even call wheat GMO, but it is. It's a hybrid. Like I said, that wheat's everywhere in everything you eat. And then they tell you about the food pyramid, right? With carbohydrates on the bottom as a staple. It was all a scam. It's total bullshit. All dietitians and anybody interested in health nowadays knows it. That's why I said when you go out in public and you look around and 90% of the people are either overweight, sick, or suffering from something. But there's a small amount of people today that you go out and look, holy crap, look how healthy that person is. And you can tell immediately. It's obvious, right? So we've learned so much about diet and nutrition, but people don't know about it. It's only now that the message has been spread because of the internet. Like I said, I've done hundreds of hours of research on vitamins, minerals, food production, absorption, correlation to diseases, and food is medicine. And food is generally what makes you sick in the long run. So there you go. Canola oil, they used to use it in engines, and now they've modified it so humans can use it, and it's safe. Right. We modified corn and soy, and yeah, they kill insects, but they're safe for you too, and your animals. And we modified wheat, and well, it's safe too. And you should eat more wheat than anything, right? Put you on a whole wheat diet, right? All this high fiber for people with intestinal problems doesn't work. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. As I did my research, it's overwhelming what has happened. And here's the last piece of the puzzle I'll leave you with before we leave today. Like I said, you have no reason to believe me, other than I have done all my research independently. I ain't selling you anything. In fact, if you notice behind me, right, there's nothing. And you watch a lot of bloggers and people doing, there's always something behind them, showing some message here, there, the other, about this, that, or the other. And I'm just here to give you the information, the right information. Because I've done all the research. And I don't use notes, right? I don't rehearse these things. I think about them for days before I do these videos. And then I come in. I don't use notes. I use my onboard computer to pull up the information and deliver it. Okay? So there's your information. Um, I'll leave you this one little piece to think about too. Okay? They tell you to believe all this that they told you, right? And I'm telling you, it's all bullshit. Think about this. What company developed or not all, but most of it, and was highly involved in the GMO process in agriculture? What company did that? I'll give you one guess. Monsanto. Okay? Monsanto invented GMO corn and soy. And what company produces all those herbicides and pesticides and things like glyphosate? I'll give you another guess. One guess. That's right. Monsanto. And we know bribes are going across back and forth. Like I told you, I saw a report where an American official for the FDA was given $65,000 by the Canadian government so that FDA official would then go and say, yeah, it probably doesn't cause cancer. Probably doesn't. And they want you to believe that bullshit. Look around. Do your own research if you don't believe me. Trust me, it's all there. See you later.